Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Book Talk. We are going to be talking about a new chapter from the books of my youth.
It is Les Miserables, and it's a very famous book by Victor Hugo, which has also been made into a movie.
Yes, and the movie adaptation had Anne Hathaway and Hugh Jackman. I'm showing you all this feature that I wrote in this article on Les Mis in this magazine called Soka Successors. Anyway, on with our book talk.
Yeah, so what I liked the most about this book was the spirit of compassion, which we know is so important. And we love it when somebody else is being compassionate. And even being compassionate ourselves is always something which induces so much happiness in our life. So that is like a major theme here. And it basically talks about empathy with the poor. And at a very tumultuous time in France, this is set. And my favorite character would be, of course, Valjean, the protagonist of the story. So, do you want to talk about Jean Valjean?
I just want to give a quick background to my deep love for Les Mis. It was in 2012, I think, that a friend introduced me to the 10th anniversary concert of Les Mis, presented by what is called the Dreamcast. And there were around 7 or 8 of us watching this on campus. And to hear this novel come to life in song and operatic song at that was just so moving. And I fell in love with the concert, and I wrote so many of my papers with that playing as the background score. And I had read the book before I went to college. It was in 2 volumes. It's a dense, thick book. But the concert is what really brought it to life for me. So Jean Valjean, the protagonist, is, he has my heart. We had a discussion with friends on this book once, and my friend said, well, in the beginning of the book, Valjean's a prisoner. And she said, of course, he had done wrong things, which is why he was imprisoned. But I completely disagreed, because this book, it's talking about empathy for the poor. So when you talk of anything to do with empathy, there's going to be questions about what is good and what is bad, what is right and what is wrong. Because a lot of unkindness stems from this understanding of what is right and wrong. So if we believe somebody is in the wrong, we feel it is justified to be unkind to them. Valjean was imprisoned for stealing a loaf of bread. Why did he steal the loaf of bread? Because he was a laborer, he was starving, and he didn't even steal it for himself. He stole it for his sister and her starving children. And for this, he was imprisoned for over a decade. Right? Something this unjust happening to a person can break their spirit. It can completely warp their humanity. So when he came out of prison on parole, he met this bishop who gave him a space to stay at night. But even though he was very moved by the bishop's kindness, he was in survival mode. So he stole the bishop's silverware and he ran. And as luck would have it, he was caught. But him being caught again was life-changing for him, because that is when the bishop proved his humanity. He told the cops, well, this is my friend. I gifted him these things. In fact, he left in haste, but there were other things I wanted to gift. This great display of kindness is what brought Jean Valjean back to his own humanity. And starting from there, he just kept working on giving back to society. And that's how he was eventually elected as mayor. And he is known for his compassion for people. He owns his own factories where he tries his best to be fair and just to everybody. And then he wins our hearts more by adopting this little girl, Cosette. He promises his mother on her deathbed that he's going to take care of Cosette, which he does throughout his life. And then the revolution begins, and Cosette's beloved is about to lose his life there. And Valjean puts his own life at risk to save this young boy so that these young people, Cosette and Marius, can have a future. I just feel that Valjean is a great example to show that if you want to stick to your humanity, nobody can stop you from doing that. No circumstances can stop you from doing it. It is your decision, right?
Yeah.
And we can't think of Valjean without thinking of his arch nemesis, Inspector Javert. Do you have anything to say about their relationship?
So he had his own sense of what is right, which was not right in the sense that it should be right. Like it was not compassionate, and we
Yes.
must always strive to be compassionate. And here, Daisaku Ikeda wrote that Hugo was a serious observer of the human condition, wherein he continually sought the light of goodness. This is from Soka Successors, which has an excerpt from the books of my youth.
Yeah.
So we always seek this goodness that we know that we have, this inherent goodness of compassion. So just like the human spirit has compassionate, which is inherent is in us, all of these characters who are so-called like dark characters, be it Javed or Mr. the Nadir, all of them show the fundamental darkness of the human spirit. That is what they portray here. And as long as this is a book about humans, there will always be these two sides to it, the sun and the moon, or the sun and the complete darkness, where he plays his role as.
Hmm. In fact, I like that line that rather than the sun and the moon, it's more like sun and complete darkness because the moon
Yes.
also soothes. I read this line, I forget which book it was, again, years ago in college, where an older person was telling this young boy, be like the moon because the sun's rays are so bright, they can sometimes be scorching, but the moon illuminates and always soothes whoever is in its light.
That's so
So
wonderful.
yeah, so Javert was not the opposite of the sun because there was nothing soothing about him, right?
Yeah.
And interestingly, his character song in Les Mis is called Stars. And we all look at things the way that we are. I think commonly when we think of stars, we think of bright, twinkling, pretty, delightful things, right? But for Javert, the stars were the sentinels of the night. And what he loved about them is that they appeared night after night in the same place, keeping watch in the dark, making sure that nobody was doing what they shouldn't be doing. And he believed himself to be one such star. No? So, as you said, that Javert's understanding of right and wrong was not based on compassion. He was very arbitrary. And it's so clear that for somebody like Javert, if what they believe to be right and wrong, like that there is no leeway at all, if it's proven to be not as clear cut as if it's proven to be untrue, basically, they can't stand it. That there is this dramatic scene in the concert where Javert jumps off a bridge and he ends his life because he says there can't be Jean Valjean and Javert. And this scene took place right after Valjean, in fact, saved his life in a sense during the revolution and all this conflict is going on. He couldn't stand the fact that this man, whom he has hounded as a criminal for the better part of this novel, that person is sparing his life. No? So I feel that compassion opens us to also receiving kindness, receiving love. And when we are lacking in compassion, not only can we not give love, we also can't receive it. No.
Yes.
And you also mentioned Mr. Thénardier. Any more thoughts on him? He was a very colorful character.
We have many people like Thénardier in the world right now. And like you said, Javed said that Valjean and Javed can't exist together. But when we talk about realizing a peaceful world or a better world, we are trying to get this thing to be that people like Javed and people like Valjean and all the other characters can exist together happily. So I think everything is subject to change. And although the book ends here with the characters as light or dark, there is always hope for people because we are seeking that hope. And I think that is one message which Hugo is trying to tell us through this novel.
Yeah. So as long as there is life, there is hope. Yeah. And those who choose to not change, like Javert, for example, they are taken out of the story. They take themselves out of the story like he did. And yeah, speaking of Thénardier, the way he was characterized, I can't really envision him changing as a person because if you remember, like till the end, he's avaricious, self-serving till the very end. He stays that way. And I remember the scene from the movie where all these fallen revolutionaries, we get to see them, and it's such a heartrending scene. And Thenardier goes skipping around them, and he's, like scrambling about in their pockets for their jewelry and cash, and he's removing the rings from their fingers. I think Hugo also, by showing us the great depravity that people are capable of, he's also cautioning us that, look, there is a point of no return, and don't let it get to that point. Like there has to be some stage at which you hold yourself back, and your morals and your values will not allow you to fall so low. Because once you do, it's really like a point of no return. Like, how do you come back from there? I feel that, classic works of literature in general, which Daisaku Ikeda talks about in this book, they're so important because, like, he's also mentioned that these books have stood the test of time. They have endured for years and years because they continue to effectively address the questions of humankind. And I feel that if we make an effort to read these texts, we will be able to guide ourselves towards a better way of living, right? Because whatever questions and confusions we may have now, they are not new to us, and they're not specific to us. People since the dawn of time have been having these questions and concerns, and these writers, these philosophers, they did us the great service of deeply thinking about these things and writing not as answers, like it's not a Q&A, right? But they observed humanity. And they showed us, like, these are the choices you have. John, you want to be a Javert, you want to be a Thenardier. Who do you want to be?
And whenever we think about reading classics, we think about, how fast we can finish it. But that's really not how we should think about it, because Daisaku Ikeda writes here that it took him about 7 to 8 years to read it. And it was like 4,000 pages. I think he said he read 3 volumes of it. So we should just take our time with it and not rush about it. I think then we can truly gain the essence of it and then implement it in our own lives as well. That's important.
Well, I think that's a wonderful point about giving it time. I remember reading Daisaku Ikeda's words that the way that we respond to characters in a book is the way that we respond to people in real life.
Wow.
And that really struck me, because for me, there is a pattern. There is a certain kind of character that I'm not able to digest at all in literature. And it's because in real life also, I am unable to accept that kind of person, right? So I thought, okay, if next time I encounter such a fictional character, let me experiment. Let me give myself the right to close the book and say, I don't want to read about this person right now. But then go back to it in my own time and see, can I accept them better now? Can I perhaps try and understand them better now? Can I make a place for them in the fictional world that I've created? Can I do that? No. And just the other day, somebody mentioned that the world is moving at a dangerous speed toward rejecting the other, right? Like what you're saying, that we want an ideal world is one where Javerts and Valjeans coexist, right? Without making life difficult for each other. But we also know that in real life, that is not, I don't want to say it's impossible, but it's certainly not true at this point, right? It's not happening. So this person said, well, we are moving towards this at a very dangerous fast speed, because as long as we keep rejecting the other, we will cause conflict. No, it's just, it can't exist that way. And somebody else had told me years ago that no matter how unjust or how cruel a thing may be, it is valid just by virtue of its existence. In the sense, they weren't saying it is good, they weren't saying it should be permitted, but they said it exists. You can't change the fact that it exists. You can't change the fact that these people exist, that these injustices exist, that this unkindness exists. So what do we do with it? I said right in the beginning, the reason I admire Valjean so much is that he stays true to his humanism, whatever injustice is around him. And his whole life, he's been hounded by injustice. And if you remember that, my gosh, the very goosebumpish scene, both in the book and in the concert, where he has a chance to give himself immunity because Javert has caught the wrong person thinking that's Valjean, right? And he has to decide that, do I let this innocent man be imprisoned in my stead and therefore, like, just take off any suspicion from me? Or do I do the right thing and go say that's not him? It's me. And do I bring myself into Javert's attention again? And this line from the concert, he said, if I speak up, I am condemned. But if I stay silent, I am damned. Societal condemnation and the damnation of his own soul. Right? So Daisaku Ikeda says here that in any age, no matter how times progress or how close a government moves towards its ideals, there are always the miserable, those who have been pushed to society's corners but nevertheless go on with their lives. I think at the core of it, Javert, even Thénardier, every character, Cosette's mom, Fantine, who lived such a sad, unfortunate life, right? But they just went on with their lives. It shows the resilience of human beings. And I think after reading Les Mis, one feels so appreciative for life. It's like so much appreciation for being born human.
So about this theme about empathy with the poor, what I love so much about Hugo is that he himself was not poor. I mean, and also in The Hunchback of Notre Dame, which is another book by him, he shares the story of a boy called Quasimodo who has a deformed face and a hunched back, for which he goes through many ordeals. And he is made to feel like an outcast. And again, compassion was, and his empathy, that he really put himself mentally in the shoes of these people and told us these stories, which are so, so wonderful.
That's an angle I had never considered before. Yes, why is it that he was so drawn to these topics? And why wasn't he writing about people settled more comfortably?
Yeah. I think during the French Revolution, when he was writing, he also got this spirit instilled in himself, the spirit of revolution against authority. And I think it really related in his heart. He had a soft spot for these outcasts, these social misfits. And that's the story that he chose to share with the world.
Well, there was this line in Books of My Youth. Daisaku Ikeda says that Hugo did not view human misery from some lofty perch. Rather, he wrote Les Mis with deep empathy for the poor. Whether writing about a person, a historical event, or describing a city, Hugo's point of view remained the same. Always observing things as they really were, from the perspective of those at the bottom of society. I think this is a strong statement, and it makes sense because Hugo's statements themselves were very strong. He didn't have to come out and say that the rich are delusional and it's the poor who know things best. But I mean, he made no bones about the fact that this is what he believed, that to understand things as they really are, you have to look at it from those who are at the bottom of the society because they're facing reality head on. I feel that if we read these kind of books, we will be so much wiser. We will know how to give a listening ear and when, and we won't be cloistered in our own social class, so to speak.
Yes.
And this lovely line, again from Books of My Youth, it's actually quoting Hugo. There is one spectacle greater than the sea, that is the sky. There is one spectacle greater than the sky, that is the interior of the soul. Any thoughts on this?
Yes, I think at another place, Hugo calls this a religious book because it talks about the human spirit and the soul. So this is what makes it so philosophical, because we really get to see the two sides of the human soul. Also, the spark which helps in manifesting the good side, which in this story is the bishop, And in The Hunchback of Notre Dame, it was Esmeralda, who really sees beyond the actions of the person and tries to find the reason and tries to understand why they are doing what they are doing. To see things as a friend. And sometimes just to have a friend like that can just change the entire story for ourselves and others also, because what we do has an impact on others.
To just look beyond so-called ridiculous actions of a person and try and understand why they're doing it. And we understand that by looking at them as a friend. That is a beautiful point. Yeah, because being a friend means that we are kind, we are compassionate. And yeah, I think we need to have more of these discussions. And I certainly hope that our viewers are making note of all these points. Um, yeah, and when you mentioned the bishop, so on page 45 of the Books of My Youth, Mr. Ikeda says, the bishop is a man who eats and dresses modestly, and he never forgets the spirit of tolerance for the poor who commit crimes on account of their poverty. No? So just what you were saying, that he's not forgiving them for committing crimes. He's forgiving them for committing crimes on account of their poverty. And
Yes.
Valjean's crime and his was driven by the poverty of food. It was driven by actual physical hunger. It's a bit of funny anecdote, but when I was in college, I went to college abroad, and we used to have a common kitchen where all the students would store their snacks and their food in the fridge. And we used to put notes that please don't take my snacks. Because in college, it used to be quite common that you'd open the fridge and you'd see somebody's had drunk your juice and your plates are empty, things like that. I had this terrible habit of losing track of time. So I would often forget to go for dinner, right? And I was very hungry. The good thing is that I didn't go stealing anybody else's snacks. I would go knocking on people's doors. Whether I knew them or I didn't, I would request, I would beg them. And I'd say that, do you have anything at all that I could have? So I lived the stereotype of the poor Indian. Luckily, I had many friends who were very kind, and they were also wiser than me in that they were well stocked with their snacks, and they would let me share. And because I experienced that, I decided that hunger is not something that anyone should be punished for. So when I used to stock my food in the common fridge, I would put notes saying, if you're very hungry, please have it. And one day I went down to the kitchen and I saw that the bottle of juice I had bought was sitting on the table and it was empty with a little sticky note underneath. And the sticky note had a smile saying, thank you so much. When you say look at a person as a friend, it makes such a difference. And that is the beginning of empathy. Like if we are so cloistered in our own social class also, so to speak, then anybody who is beyond that class or beyond that group or that clique becomes somebody who is not a friend and somebody who doesn't deserve our kindness. I think that this book makes one do a lot of introspection, that how much of a friend really am I in the way that I look at people, in the way that I perceive them. Yeah. Do you have an anecdote or an example to share of this where you were able to perceive someone as a friend or you felt seen that way?
Daisaku Ikeda's books where he's just always encouraging. I do that with my friends. Like whatever they say, I just put out, you always feel that you're always getting back, even if it is not there. Like the bishop, when he is compassionate with Valjean, he does not expect anything in return. He's just being a friend and he's just trying to understand. And I think that in itself is very rewarding.
This point you made about what we give is what we get back. And the biggest obstacle to believing that is one's ego. I'm thinking of Javert again, that in his own way, he found perverse pleasure or happiness, so to say, in being the kind of person that he was in punishing people. He found pleasure in it. Otherwise, he wouldn't be doing it, right? And he found so much pleasure in it that he decided to elevate himself to the status of these stars, which he said are all-knowing and they're celestial bodies. Like in Javert's mind, his insistence on punishing people for doing wrong elevated him to the status of the divine almost. For him, that's what divinity was. So it's not as if he wasn't getting back some great satisfaction or pleasure or happiness. But this book makes us wonder, what is true happiness? Right? Valjean, in his last moments, he is visited by the ghost of Fantine, the woman whose daughter he raised as his own. And Fantine's ghost says, take my hand and let me take you to, the afterlife, to the beautiful afterlife. And that exchange is just so beautiful because Fantine is full of gratitude for him. And Cosette and Marius, the young man who he saved, and now they're together, and they're also kneeling by his side. So the kind of happiness that Valjean experiences by giving and giving his heart and his compassion, it in nowhere compares to Javert's great disillusionment with the world and with himself as he jumps off the bridge to take his life. Daisaku Ikeda often says that true victory or defeat is actually determined at the end of our life.
Yes.
So throughout life, all the people I think who knew Inspector Javert, who perhaps worked with him, who maybe even awarded him medals and whatnot, may have thought, oh, this man is doing so well for himself. Right? He believed he was doing well for himself.
Yeah.
But at the end, who is the person who lived a full life, a life of happiness? So as you said, let's give it time. If we rush through a book and if we just chat GPT the plot, we will never be taken through the lives of these characters. And we will not be able to understand that there are different kinds of happiness. And what is the absolute happiness that we want to seek? It's really wonderful finding role models in these books.
So as you said, right, Javert, whatever he was doing, he was happy with it. He thought it was right. But if he was truly happy, like you said, what is true happiness? If he was truly happy, then he wouldn't have ended his life, right? So that makes us think, like, what is true happiness? If only the ending is happy for ourselves. Because the ending will only be happy when we know that we have done the right thing.
Yeah, as you correctly said, it's not that you keep doing the wrong things and suddenly the ending is happy.
Yes, that never happens. It's never happened in history.
The Daisaku Ikeda, in fact, often makes a distinction between relative happiness and absolute happiness. Relative happiness is the little pleasure that you are getting from everything that you are doing. All right. Like I bought something that I liked that gave me happiness. That is relative happiness. But the absolute happiness is the kind that accumulates over time, that builds. Right? And nothing can take away from me. So this point about giving to people compassion, getting that compassion back, that is what builds that absolute happiness. And I've always maintained that relative happiness has its own value. If we believe that relative happiness is unimportant, then we can't explain why we and anybody even seeks relative happiness. Why was Javert seeking to punish the wrongdoers? It's because the relative happiness, the lesser happiness he got, he was content with it. And that also brings me to this realization that to seek true happiness, we have to have courage to open our heart. What can I improve about the way that I live my life? It's a life of uncertainty in a sense, right? Because you're acknowledging that I don't have it all my ducks, lined up in a row. And that perhaps the ducks will never line up in a row because that's not their nature. I have to keep doing it, then they fly about, then again I do. And that point in which Valjean decided that he would reveal himself as the real Valjean and save that man's life, I think that was a great example of this courage, of this uncertainty. So he kept building and rebuilding his life over and over again.
It is so in parallel with how the bishop had saved him. Maybe that influenced him to do this with the old man.
Yeah. And it's so important to not give up on our humanity. The bishop already showed him kindness by giving him a place to stay in his own home, right? So he needn't have done more than that. He could have decided, well, I was so nice to him, and this is the way he repays my trust. This is the way he repays my kindness by burgling my home. But he decided that I will do it again. I will show more kindness. And he needed to show that second instance of kindness, greater kindness, for it to make a dent with Valjean. And it changed Valjean's life. So, how do we not make things about ourselves? Right?
That's an important point.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, how do we keep overcoming this ego that, it feels so good for a long time, but it's only constricting our hearts. It's making us smaller and smaller, but it feels so good. How do we overcome it? And I think that's where these books come in handy. Yeah.
As this novel is about compassion, and as you shared this point about not being hurt and not making it about ourselves, this is one point that I take to do these repeated acts of compassion because it only first makes me happy.
Mm.
And we must always encourage the goodness of humanity. So we know that people are good and people are bad. I am good, half and half bad. But I will always encourage and seek this goodness that I know that I have. So this is one point that I'll take from this study.
Yes. And the point that Daisaku Ikeda ends this chapter with, he says the character of Jean Valjean, the embodiment of humanism, was perhaps Hugo's ideal image of himself. Hugo, I feel, until the last moment of his life, wanted to identify fully with the protagonist he had created. I also want to be able to identify with the characters, the fictional characters whom I really admire. Well, John being one of them, because I feel that when things are getting very hard and it's becoming hard to believe in the goodness of humanity and rather to even believe in my own compassion, I can think of Valjean and say, if this person could do it, and this person is based on somebody real, right? There is no fiction which is disconnected from reality. So it has to be based on somebody who is real. And I see so many of different Valjeans and different people in my life, so that gives me the hope and the courage that I'm not alone. I can do this too.
Another little point I want to share is that I think, and my friends also think, that I am usually very good to people. And they often warn me that, don't be so good, you will be fooled. Or people will walk all over you and you wouldn't even know it. But I always say to them that I can do this because I'm strong, because I don't get hurt, because I don't give that power to somebody else to hurt me.
Hmm.
And if they do something to hurt me, they will also feel hurt because that is the human soul. And we often get discouraged when people don't act compassionate in return to our compassion. But that's the thing that we should be strong about and more so courageous about.
And another inspiration we can take from Valjean is that despite his great humanity, or perhaps because of his great humanity, he also succeeded in life. He was a mayor. He started out as a prisoner, right? And he ended up as a mayor. And he was elected by the people because of his humanity. So he's not somebody that everybody take advantage of him. He
Yeah.
was wise enough and capable enough of rising in life. And I'm so grateful to Hugo for showing such a character because, like you mentioned, the common understanding is that if you are too good, you are taken advantage of. But that's not true. There are many, many good people who are also doing well in life. And when a character like Valjean is shown to be in the position of a mayor, it's not just to stoke the character's ego. It's for us to understand that personal growth and advancement is not at the cost of our humanity. They go together. Our humanity enhances our ambition. So thank you so much, Trisha, and thank you everybody for listening in. And we hope you will be inspired to read the books of my youth and that you will be inspired to read Victor Hugo's Les Mis and also our feature in Soka Successors. Thank you so much and see you next time. Bye-bye.